marketing without data is like driving with your eyes closed.
Hi, before we get to this week's podcast, I'd like to tell you that Automated Creative are releasing a book called How to Make It in Marketing, Volume 1. It is a collection of the best marketing career advice we've had from over 200 episodes of the Shiny New Object podcast. You'll hear from some of the biggest, brightest and best names in the industry telling you how to grow your career. You can reserve yourself a copy at this URL. So get your pens out. It's bit.ly, so bit.ly/make it in marketing. So that's bit.ly, bit.ly/make it in marketing. But the make it in marketing bit is in capital letters. So bit.ly/lowercase and the rest is make it in marketing uppercase. I think you should get your heads around that. And enjoy. It's a great read. Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, and it is my great pleasure to record this podcast every week that investigates the future of our industry. And I am on a call with Madlen Nicolaus, who is VP Marketing EMEA at SAP Concur. Madlen, for anyone who doesn't know who you are and what you do, can you give us a quick background?
Of course. Thanks for having me on the podcast. So I have been now, and it sounds scary when I say that, almost 20 years in marketing, and I've had different roles. My career actually started at PR agencies, and from there I then did the jump on the client side, because when I worked for Ketchum, it was actually the time 2007 when in Germany as well, I was based in Munich at the time, social started, and there Kodak was globally one of the first brands really embracing social media. They had their first social media policy, and so with that I had the pleasure of starting their social media strategy first for Germany and rolling it out to multiple countries across EMEA, and that's how I then did the jump over to the client side and became actually one of the first social media managers in Europe. I remember, because I was interviewed by like magazines like the Wirtschaftswoche, and they were like, what do you do all day in that kind of job? And then from there, I interestingly moved at Kodak. I was responsible for both B2B and B2C. And we were, for the social media monitoring and engagement, we were using Radiant 6. And that was actually then the reason I jumped over to Salesforce, because they just had acquired Radiant 6 and they needed someone to lead EMEA marketing for them. And so there I had the fantastic opportunity of actually establishing what the marketing cloud, as a new category is, because we went then through additional acquisitions of Buddy Media, ExactTarget, and so Salesforce was launching the first marketing cloud before then everyone else started copying it. And so I then worked at Salesforce for a number of years in multiple roles. At the very last, I was leading the European product marketing team for Salesforce. And then I moved over to Concur. And interestingly, so there's always a little bit of a thread between the different roles. I was always using Concur as my travel and expense tool. And so they were then looking for a head of EMEA marketing in 2017. And yeah, that's where I am today, almost 6 years with the company. And so I'm leading the field marketing team on an EMEA level, which covers 21 countries, which is broken down in 11 market units. And so we are mainly focused on the demand generation part of the business.
And in that career, what new belief or behavior has had the biggest impact on your work life?
So it's really something that I have realized because moving from Germany over to the UK and also moving into a European role, which meant my counterparts weren't just sitting with me in an office anymore. My reality living and working in Germany, and I know that from still a lot of colleagues even today, was very much focused on kind of the, 9 to 5, and you had to be office presence. And the moment I moved to the UK in 2010, I, of course, had an office, but I was automatically working flexible because I had to travel a lot to the different countries. I had to visit the agencies a lot. And so I had this flexible working really for the last 13 years. And so there was always a couple of office days, but I really very much planned it around how it worked for, well, the job I had to do, but also my personal schedule. And it's really interesting that what the pandemic meant for SAP was also that they then introduced what they call a pledge to flex over the last 3-4 years, which really means that as an employee, you need to confirm with your manager how you would like to work. And of course, you need to be there for the important meetings and do your work, but you have a lot of flexibility to say, I would actually prefer to be working from home, and home is basically my main location, or I'm rather prefer to be in an office, or I had team members who relocated further away, who moved somewhere more into the countryside because they could make that work better for their family life. And what really that helped for me, I'm a mother of 3, and I would say the only reason I can have the career I have, and I was still able to have a family and build a family and not drop out, was that flexibility that I always had in my job since I moved to the UK. It doesn't mean it was always easy, and it doesn't mean I had weeks where I had 5 days in the office because we had important meetings or all the traveling I had to do, but I had the flexibility to make it work and arrange it. And I'm quite passionate about this topic, especially like I am a woman working in tech, and I have seen in my career so many colleagues, friends, team members, which dropped out because they started a family and they couldn't make it work. They had to be the ones picking up their kids from nursery in the afternoon. Their husband had no flexibility, and so they ended up staying home, or sometimes, depending on the type of job, it just also didn't make sense in terms of comparing this with the nursery fees. As we know, there's a huge debate in the UK at the moment about kind of that it's the country with the highest costs for childcare. And so you also have to weigh that up, and where you lose a lot of talent, and where I still see it today. I've built a fantastic career, and colleagues who started with me who are now, their kids might be 9-10 years old and they're still at home. They haven't actually managed to make that step back into their working life. And on the other hand, I'm leading like a large team. It's almost 100 people. And I have so many women on my team, and where I can see how they thrive and how they perform. But thanks to that flexibility and also thanks to the tools that we have today, that, calls are being recorded. If they can't make the call because they have a sick child or they just have other commitments at that moment, well, it's recorded. They can still catch up on it. They can still do their job. And so in our line of business, it's fantastic. And I think it's a huge leap forward to hopefully helping more women get into tech and stay in tech, even when they decide to start a family.
So what is your top marketing tip? What is that bit of advice that you give most often to your team?
So my biggest marketing tip, and that's also what I live by, is marketing without data is like driving with your eyes closed. A social media scientist said that once. I think his name is Dan Zarella or something. And so I think that is so true, and I live by that. So for anything, I find like, if you can't measure, you can't make actually any decisions. And so that's how I've been leading, my team. So we have achieved fantastic sales alignment because we are, we closely align with them in terms of the KPIs that we measure. We have regular monthly interlocks where we're looking at the KPIs, where we take actions, where we can mitigate any unperformance, or also share any, positive performance, and then can see, okay, what can we learn from that? What should we be doing more of? And really achieving also that agility in our marketing execution across the region, where the teams are constantly basically having an eye on their campaigns and their performance, and are able to switch it on, off, tweak, or alternate depending on the performance, because we are so sophisticated with the way how we track everything. We are also in a very lucky position that we have the right BI tools to be able to have, those insights and be able to really be data driven, but not even just for general performance and managing our our marketing campaigns and ensuring we hitting our business targets, but even for making decisions in terms of how I structure the team. I've always based it on data. I would always do first internal surveys and ask for feedback, and based on that, make decisions, or do the internal surveys and then also speak with, external experts who have even a broader scope, like serious decisions or Forrester, and comparing, right, what are the general trends? Are we in line with that? And how can we learn for that when we're making any organizational changes and we restructuring or things like that? So I think both, right, from a people and team leading perspective, but also for, of course, how you performance manage the programs and the campaigns that everyone's running.
This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with MadFest. Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from MadFest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com. So now we're going to talk about your shiny new object, which is ChatGPT. So you're the first person to talk about this, which is an interesting data point in itself. So can you firstly, very succinctly, describe to anyone who isn't clear on what ChatGPT is and why it's your shiny new object?
Yes. So yeah, I'm super fascinated by it. And I always joke to my team that I have this new personal assistant. So it is effectively like an AI, an artificial intelligence language model. Yesterday, just the latest version, ChatGPT 4, came out. So what I've been using over the last couple of months has been ChatGPT 3 and 3.5. So basically the earlier version where it's text-based. So you have to imagine it as you have a field where you input a query, let's say, how would you phrase X, Y, and Z? Or how could you structure a presentation about X, Y, and Z? And these are the sort of requests you can put into the tool, and you will be astonished by the sophistication of the answer and how good it is. So the way I have been using it is, for example, I have to read sometimes, a lot of copy, internal emails, or even social media posts that my team is doing for executives or things like that. And so my head of EMEA PR, she was saying, Madlen, you're really quick in your feedback recently, but it is because I run it through ChatGPT, because I'm bilingual only, English is not my first language. And so sometimes I will find when I read copy that a sentence doesn't sound right. And because it's like our exec comms for the social channels, sometimes, I do have to look over that. And so then this is something you can type into, you copy and paste it into the ChatGPT tool and say, could you phrase this anyway better? And then, 1 second later, you have your answer. And it's really helpful. Or just when you have to write, I sometimes have to do restructuring, internal org announcements, or someone is leaving on the team. And it just makes you so much more efficient, because you can basically input everything you have so far, or it might be a tricky email you have and where you're like, oh God, I don't know how to respond to that. And you can copy the email into it and say, I would like to respond in this or that way, and it will provide you with a draft. I mean, what I would say, you want to rephrase it. I've been using it that much that I feel like I can read on LinkedIn when someone's using ChatGPT, because it is a certain way how it structures, sentences and things where you, I would say I can notice it now. But just for getting started, or sometimes, when you don't quite know where to start, it's just to help also with a writer's block, I guess. super helpful. I've been super intrigued. And of course, there's lots of questions around like copyright, and it's also a little bit scary how good it is, how quick it is, and where you also think, God, what's going to happen to all of the writers in the world? And I certainly ask myself that as well. But I would recommend everyone, and I've done it with my team. I made them all try it because I think you should know what ChatGPT is these days, I would say.
So can you give me some more examples of how you use it? So you talked about social posts and responding to tricky emails and presentation structures, but can you help me understand how you're using it specifically, not just for kind of office use, I guess, but for actual public-facing content that isn't just a social post?
You can literally, you can make it write your business plan. You can, not that I need that in my work, but my husband has tested it, and where he was like, oh my God, this is so good. It's scary. You can literally, for anything, if you say, I need to write an article about women in tech, or artificial intelligence, and you give it a few bullet points, it will write that for you. You can say how long. You can then go back in and say, oh, can you write this a little bit more conversational? Can you check, can you shorten it? Or can you highlight a little bit more key points in this direction or that direction? It's literally, it feels like it's your own personal assistant, like your editing assistant. And as far as I know about GPT-4, I mean, it literally only came out yesterday, but it will be at the moment, right? What you could do is you type and you get text responses. And the new part about GPT-4, and then it's not called chat anymore because it's more complex. So GPT-4 will allow effectively video, audio input, photos. And so even from that, it will be able, with, optical image recognition and all of that, it will be able to transcribe what's in a video and things like that. And I know, Microsoft has a huge stake in OpenAI, and you might have noticed, for anyone who's using Microsoft Teams, kind of the transcription has gone much, much better. And I think the goal, it's not switched on yet, as far as I know, at least not with the version that I have. But what their goal is to also, for instance, you have meetings, and then the tool will be able to do a meeting summary, right? And this is also where in the background it's GPT 3 or 4 that Microsoft is using for their Teams tool.
So how do you defend against mediocrity? Because ChatGPT, I haven't used the new one yet, I think it came out yesterday, is an amalgamation, or what's a better word? It takes lots of examples of things that have happened previously to make a suggestion. So, for example, if you said, write me a LinkedIn posting strategy, what it would do is pull probably hundreds of blogs, if not thousands of blogs, to advise how to do that. But that will be what everyone else has done before. And if everyone else is doing the same thing, then you're not marketing, you're not cutting through, you're not being different, you're not being creative, you're mimicking. And mimicry in marketing is poor marketing. So how do you use ChatGPT to defend against just being like everyone else?
Exactly. And this is also where I'm like, you want to use it with a pinch of salt. And what I am not implying is you should use it for building your marketing strategy, or right. But what it can help, where I find it makes you just that more quicker, because sometimes, right, a lot of our day we responding to emails, or we have to create quick posts, or where you might have to copy read something, or write internal announcements, or whatever it might be. It can increase just your effectiveness, efficiency a little bit, because you'll save time where you might have set longer time kind of just thinking about, okay, how am I going to structure this? Or how am I going? It gives you a starting point, where I would say is you definitely. And this is where the human side comes in, and where this tool will never, right, be better than the person sitting there. You have your own, you need to add your own touch to it. So it shouldn't, I would not recommend to just, that's what I mean. I can see it now on LinkedIn when literally people just type it into ChatGPT and copy and paste from it. And then we will have exactly as you say, we will have all this mediocre and everyone and everything will sound the same. I think it might even, what I could imagine, I used to, at my time at Salesforce, one of my topics was also the Einstein AI solution for Salesforce. So that was effectively their AI offering back in the day, like 5-6 years ago, as it started, and where it helped with, like it used propensity modeling. It would go through your emails that you send to the customer, and based on that, then provide recommendations. Oh, you should reach out to that customer again, or help you basically prioritize, right, the opportunities or the leads you had. But it was very much based on what you have done before. What I could imagine with this GPT as evolution and kind of these language models, if it would plug in more into also, the things you have created before and take that into consideration, if you would have that possibility, right, to train it based on your style of writing and things you have done before, because I'm sure you the same, right? You have to do a strategy presentation, or you think of a concept and then you think back, oh, have I done anything like that before? Is there some type of slides or at least a layout that I can reuse when sharing that strategy? And so I think it again, right? Whereas if you then sift through your computer and try to find that deck from back in the day where you might want to reuse some part, it takes a lot of time. Whereas if you have a smart AI solution that can do that looking for you, and then this is where the time efficiency is. And this is also where I know there is a lot of angst and a lot of anxiety around these AI solutions, but I also think it's a huge potential in all fields, right? Like in medicine, with legal cases, because you're not relying on the paralegal who has to go through all the cases. You can do AI who basically has access to all of the cases globally and will be able to then, right, find perhaps a way of addressing the specific topic, and with health as well, access to all of the medical data, and being able in milliseconds to sift through that and provide, treatment suggestions that have worked before, things like that. It's just that sort of time saving. I am not saying that, it's the answer to everything, and there's copyright issues, and hopefully, right, it's not going to go that far that it will mean that there's no content writers needed anymore, or no designers, because it is, there's other AI tools out there who now, create images that fast, and where you think, oh my God, what will that mean for designers in the longer term? We don't know. But I think the creative aspect, that's exactly what you then still need to bring to that, right? To make sure it's not the mediocre, a mix of everything that's already out there. But you could argue that creativity is also always, right, you base it on something. It's always a mashup of something that perhaps has already existed somewhere. So
thank you for that explanation, and thanks for giving me the very specific examples of how you use it and how we should be approaching it. Unfortunately, we've run out of time and we're going to have to leave it there. So Madlen, if someone wants to reach out to you, where is the best place to do that? And what makes a really good outreach message to you?
So I think it's what everyone says. It's LinkedIn, of course, I think, but you can also reach out I'm on Twitter as well. And yeah, maybe refer back to the podcast, so I know where to place you and the reason why you reach out. But otherwise, yeah, I'm usually on top of kind of my LinkedIn and try to answer if I can.
Madlen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi. Just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the Shiny New Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That'd just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And yeah, if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.